Hello again, everybody. Dr. Glenn with Infinite Wellness. Another run of our question and answer series. Please keep following us. Watch our videos if you get a chance. Love to have your input, and we love more questions. So please feel free to ask as much as you can, share and like our videos.
All right, today it says, how does chiropractic care help children, and what are the benefits?
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so this is a big heartfelt of mine. I've loved working on kids for a very long time. Been doing this 26 years as a chiropractor this year. And working with kids is one of my favorite things to do. It's a marvelous way to try to help the next generation sort of understand what the benefits to alternative healthcare really are, and how this is a natural, easy way to correct minor issues while they're young, so that as they're aging, they don't become larger issues or things that are a lot harder to deal with once they've gotten into their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're having chronic pains, chronic problems. So the benefits for children, honestly, with chiropractic really is about keeping the body, joints as a whole, and in particular the spine, moving as freely and as good as possible. And as we all know, if you've got kids, I'll tell you, I personally do not have children, but I've had the pleasure of being around for a lot of folks who do, and being the doc for a lot of people who have kids, and watching them. They are a walking travesty for their own health. Kids are great at being kids. It's what they do. And even from those very first days where they're just first learning to stand up or pull themselves up on something and falling, all the way up through those younger years where they fall pretty repetitively, learning to walk, where they begin playing sports and begin becoming active, when they're brothers and they're sisters and they're fighting one another. I mean, let me tell you, kids are like a daily accident. And so the benefit for all of this, especially with alternative healthcare, chiropractic in particular, is we're able to monitor them as they're growing up through all these little incidences. And oftentimes they're not going to come running to you and tell you, oh, my back hurts. Oh, my neck hurts. Oh, I have headaches. These are things that the parents will realize or find out that they're complaining of later on. Not the day they did it, not right when it happened oftentimes, but weeks, months, sometimes even years later, which is truly a crisis for our kids. They grow up into injury and pain, which is not the way it's supposed to be. And chiropractic is great for getting kids in and really trying to figure out, okay, what kind of movement and position they have before things become a big problem. So getting to adjust young people is one of the best things that we can do. It teaches their body how to function better, have better neurological impulse. Anytime we correct something where there's not proper mobility, or we alleviate muscle tension, or just positional issues, the nervous system kicks back in a little bit better. And that free-flowing neurological input from area to brain back to certain areas, knees, hips, ankles, lower back, wherever, is restored. And being able to restore that for them gives them a greater deal of being able to be healthy on a regular basis. We could get into a little bit more, and maybe in another video I'll do this, but even small problems that impede some of the response of the nervous system, say to a joint that's injured, like a knee or a hip, actually drags the nervous system as a whole down, meaning that all of its other normal functions, things like digestion, things like sleep, things like immunity, that's a big one, become compromised. And because the body's busy dealing with one issue or two issues that are structural, then these other functions are lowered as well, as the body's trying to manage some of the stuff that's there that we can get out of the way. So that for us is a big ordeal as to why we do this, not just for structural issues, but for functional issues.
If a child deals with earaches or ear infections, can chiropractic care help with those?
Absolutely. And there's another great question. Exactly. Oftentimes, problems with children who are dealing with a great deal of drainage issues through the ears, great deals of sinus drainage and problems draining there. Oftentimes, we're looking at a stasis in lymphatic flow. Fancy terminology, lymph glands. We hear about those, right? Anytime we get sick, we feel that big swelling up under here. Oftentimes, if we're sick enough, we even feel it in our armpits. That's lymphatic drainage. Lymphatic drainage is basically what drains the sinuses and the ears of our head. So mastoid sinuses, maxillary sinuses, vernal sinuses, sphenoid sinuses, all of these things have to drain into that chain of lymphatics to come out of our head. So If the ears are improperly backed up, there's not good drainage, everything is backed up into this area, then oftentimes if the ears don't drain like they're supposed to, it's easy to get infections in there. So ear infections become more common. So it's not just ear ache, it's actually ear infection. If they're dealing with that chronically, chances are there's a drainage problem. Little bits of soft tissue maneuvers just to the neck itself, trying to help move some of that down, is very beneficial. If the sinuses are very blocked, light vibration is awesome for that. And then in particular, if it's really bad and it's not draining down the neck, oftentimes it's due to structural problems within the cervical vertebra, the 7 vertebrae between your skull and the upper part where your shoulders meet your back. If those aren't moving properly, oftentimes they create inflammation, they create problems, and then we get back up in that whole drainage area of the front side, anterior side of the neck. There's an anterior chain and a posterior chain. Posterior is smaller, much less noticeable, but that can become blocked and not be an aid to the anterior chain if there are problems, subluxations, chiropractors love to call them, but issues in the neck where there's lack of mobility and dysfunction. And that's easy to have. People ask, with children especially, well, how do they get those things? Have you ever watched a child? I don't know about y'all, but watching kids to me is hysterical. I mean, they will literally fall in ways that it's a miracle they're not half dead. If we had fallen that way, we would be at the chiropractor immediately, right? All kinds of issues. Kids are very versatile, though. They're not as tight as we are. They fall better than us. Thank heavens they're close to the ground most of the time. You know, these things do aid in that, but those small injuries can add up. And they create all kinds of muscle imbalances and other problems. Add into that things like posture, and it gets even worse.
Can chiropractic care also help with bedwetting and older kids?
Very interesting. Now we get back to what I was just speaking of earlier when it comes back to the neurology. Oftentimes, especially in the lower back, if a child has fallen several times or maybe has injured themselves and they don't feel back pain, doesn't mean that the nerves that exit the lower part of the back that are responsible for telling us when our bladder is full are giving us enough sensitivity to know that it's full and you need to wake up, bedwetting becomes common. And so oftentimes if there's that lack of neurological impulse to the bladder or even just back and forth from top down, brain to organ, kids aren't able to wake up in time or don't realize they need to wake up to go to the bathroom. And so if it's a chronic thing where they're doing this in their older years and it's becoming a problem, they're now above the ages of 4, 5, the occasional accident is one thing, but if they're wetting their bed frequently above these ages, something is not right. The system's not working, the neurology is compromised somehow, and it's not telling them, hey, I need to wake up to go to the bathroom. So yeah, chiropractic comes in great there. You examine the lower back, the pelvis, the hips, even up higher. Oftentimes, like I said, it can even be structural integrity up as high as the neck, where if this isn't functioning well, then all that input from the brain down the spinal cord isn't firing like it's supposed to. So we end up with all kinds of chronic conditions, bedwetting being one of them. And that's a common thing that we see throughout my career. I've worked with several, and it can be a big benefit to get that area adjusted and get into